subject of failure, okay, people come up. You see businesses grow up, they fail. You see individuals, some of us, we start some things, we fail. Sometimes I feel it's not understanding what the definition of failure is or what it implies. I actually read somewhere that says if if an American is building a company, he builds it for 50 years. And after 50 years, when it's failing or when it's collapsing, it's huge. If a Chinese is building a company, they build it for 100 years. And if an African is building a company, they build it for only 5 years or 10 years. I don't know how true this is, but sometimes I feel it can be attributed to so many things. And one of the things is we understanding what failure is, and sometimes when you know what failure is, I feel when you are failing, you wouldn't give up. So in your own way, can you define or probably tell us what you think failure is, what you think probably people think it is, and maybe reshape our mentality or our mindset around it a little bit.
Right.
On the subject of failure, yeah.
Well, I believe, thank you very much, Kaiser, for having me once again. And everyone on here, thank you for your audience. I'm grateful. First of all, I say failure is a condition, is a state. Often of not being able to meet setting desired intentions or desired objectives or results. All right. This could be personal. It could be, when you do not meet your personal goals. Some may refer to that as failure. All right, professional goals. If you're working on a huge project, you do not achieve the desired results, some may call it failure. All right, but I say failure is in the eyes of the beholder. And one of the things about people who are perfectionists is that if you're a perfectionist, what you may deem failure in your eyes may look like success in the eyes of others. So what may be deemed failure in your life as a perfectionist or someone who wants to dot every I and cross every T, what may be deemed failure in your eyes may look like success in someone else's eyes. All right. So it's only a state. It's only a state. I know widely failure has been viewed as a negative thing. All right. Yeah. That's what society teaches us, that failure is negative. But the truth is that failure is not. It's not always a negative thing. It can be viewed as a valuable experience, learning curve. And we see that in the life of Thomas Edison. He tried creating the light bulb on several occasions, and he failed. And when he was asked, he says, I only learned this many times, this many ways of how a light bulb cannot be made. So failure is not always a negative thing. It is the failures of our past that equips us to become the better versions of ourselves that we are today.
Oh, can you repeat that one more time? It's the failures of our past
that makes us what? Of our past that equips us to be the better version of who we are today.
Of who we are today. Powerful. I hope somebody's taking note of that.
However,
yeah, continue.
I believe failure, the impact of failure on self is what could be deemed as negative or positive. How are
So what?
you allowing failure to, what are you allowing failure to do to you? Is it keeping you down? Is it propelling you forward? There's this popular aphorism, axiom, that says it is not how many times you fall, but instead what you pick up from the ground each time you fall that matters.
Yeah, yeah.
So I hope that
That's
answers
very
the
true.
question.
Definitely, you literally explain it and define it for us. So let's talk a little bit about um, what causes men to take failure as a total downfall, right? Let me bring in this story before you even continue. I mean, some years back, I was trying to learn how to swim. So we tried to go to the poolside, myself and some friends, once a while. Then the game we play to help us learn how to swim was one person takes a coin and throws it into a deep side, and we see who can literally go in there, swim, and pick up the the coin, right? Now, when I was learning to swim, I joined these guys that they've been doing it for years. I thought from where I'm coming from, who have probably somebody who has always seen the beach side swimming, it's super easy for me. But I didn't know swimming in the pool and swimming at the beach are two different things. Okay, I'm saying
Right.
this to encourage somebody. So I joined these guys. We went to a place called Ravico Hotel. This time in Ghana. I'm sure you know, back in Ghana. Okay, at this hotel, Ravico Hotel, and they threw the coin in there, and I went straight to the deep side. My brother, that was my first time of learning how to swim, and oh my God, I drank a lot of water until I was saved from that side of the pool. Now, when I came out of the pool, some people were laughing at me. Some were helping me to come up. Like they thought I was like dying. Then one gentleman actually said, "Since you've been to the deep side and you've tested how it is, trust me, if you master how to swim, that place will look very easy for you the next time." I mean, for somebody like me, it felt like somebody who was dying. Why would this guy be telling me that when I've totally failed at trying to grab a coin and come back? But I mean, fast forward many years, and I understood that. So let's talk about let's unpack a little bit about what causes men to fail and um, what they should rather think it is. If you can speak to that for me.
Um,
What are the
so
things that basically will cause people to accept that, okay, this is failure, when in actual fact they shouldn't think about it that way?
um, let me bring in the word expectation.
Okay,
All
so
right.
that's the first one.
When your expectations are not met,
Okay.
there's a tendency of having a feeling or a sense of failure. Remember, it's a state, it's a condition. All right. So, unmet expectations, unmet
Unmet
desires,
expectations. Okay.
unmet
Wow.
objectives, unachieved results, all right, or unachieved outcomes. These are some of the things that causes people to have a feeling of that feeling of failure.
Okay. So unmet expectations. Okay.
Now, when you jumped into that pool,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you jumped into that pool, your expectation, I don't know what was going through your head.
Oh man,
But
for me it was going for the coin. Try
going
to
for the coin.
pick.
Yeah. Now, did you get the coin?
I didn't. I didn't.
All
I
right.
didn't get a coin.
So your expectations were not met. And hope that is deferred often makes their heart sick. All right. So in such an instance, you had two choices: to allow that to make you feel like a failure at it, or to recoil get the necessary skill, practice, and all you need to be able to go back in there, maybe on that same day or another time, to get a coin, or maybe if it would be another time, it probably would be a golden box or something at the bottom of the pool.
Okay. So unmet expectations can definitely be a huge part of it. Is there more? Is there more?
Absolutely. I think there's so much, there's just so much. Often also still on expectation, things we expect from people. All right. We expect that people would be or do certain things. And when they do not do it, you can have a sense of failure, right? Parents expect that their children become one thing or the other. And when their children do not become what the parents want them to become, the parents sometimes feel like a failure.
Mm.
You
Okay.
understand?
Yeah.
So there's so much to it, but it boils down to expectations and desires and yeah. And then there is
Can we
Go ahead.
okay.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, can we say it is I want the right word to use, something that is also traceable to a background, why people probably constantly fail? Could there be a
Since
point?
since desires and expectations are things that involves the mind, it obviously and definitely has to do with since for as long as there's that connection, where you are from, who you are, where you've come from, um, and the way you think, definitely has a huge role to play in it, right? Um,
Okay.
we'll talk about culture, um, where your background determines your culture,
Mhm.
right? Your background determines your culture. In the eyes of a Chinese man, right? In the eyes of a Chinese man, what may be failure may not be failure in the eyes of a Hispanic man, right? In the eyes of a medical student, what may be deemed as failure may be looked at, maybe looked up to as success in the eyes of someone who's not a medical student. All right. So a student gets a B, all right, in college, and they feel frustrated and feel as though they have failed. They failed themselves. Now, is B failure? No, but they set an expectation for themselves to perhaps get A plus in the examination. They put in so much work. So the work they had put in, the work they had put in demanded that they get an A according to their expectation in the way they think, and their background being that they're serious students. All right. On the other hand, a student who's just trying to, go through college with passing grades gets a C and is excited and says it's time to party. Right. Their background has so much to do with failure. Yeah.
Wow. So background also to some extent also plays or can play a role in failure. Um, that's a very good one also to know. And let's switch it a little bit because of time. Um, uh, I don't want to waste too much time on it
That's
because you've
right.
already defined it. You've basically also spoken about some of the things that can lead to failure. Okay, which expectation is a very huge one. Looking at the definition that you've given for failure or the explanation that you've given for failure, it looks like it's something that we are not cursed with, or nobody is cursed with. You know,
Yeah.
But for those of you that, I just getting to understand or following what I'm saying. But some people think that because they fail at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, they are cursed with failure. I've literally had a conversation with people like that where they feel whatever that they do or whatever that they touch, it will never succeed. Okay. What advice will you give to someone who's currently struggling with a recent failure or any kind of failure?
All right. First, you want to work on your perception about failure. I would say work on your perception about failure. You are not a failure. Failure is a state. It is a condition. It is not a person. You are not a failure. In fact, if I can have a few of you just type it right now, I am not a failure.
Type
I
in the
am
chat,
not a
I
failure.
am not a failure.
I
Type
am
in the
not a
chat,
failure.
right? I am not a failure.
It's a thing of perception. You are not a failure. In fact, you cannot fail. If failure is a negative thing, you cannot fail. You want to say that to yourself each day of your life. All right. The reason is that failure is a learning opportunity. Each
Failure is a
failure,
learning opportunity. Okay.
it is. It is a learning opportunity. So when as a student, you pick up your bag, your laptop, you go to class, you don't go to class, sit in class and say, I am failing. No, I am taking advantage of this learning opportunity. All right. So failure is a learning opportunity. So the more you fail, the more you know. In fact,
The more you fail, the more you know.
yes. In fact, those who have not failed at anything in life are often dangerous people to work with. If you cannot talk about your failures and how you overcame those failures, then you kind of suspicious to me. And I hope I would not be your first failure. Or working with you would not be the first failure. All right. So it is a learning opportunity. It is also there's a lot of innovation and creativity in failure. When you fail at something, in fact, let's stop saying you failed at something. Instead, you want to say, I found a way, another way of not doing something. All right. And there are no rules to creativity. So it would amaze you. It would amaze you what you can stumble upon in the process of failing. Penicillin was not meant to be penicillin.
Okay.
All right. It was not meant for its current use. It was a failure. Are you with me? Many of the inventions, there's a medicine. There is a medicine called, many of you know this medication, Viagra. Viagra was never meant to be used for what it is currently being used for in the world, in the pharmaceutical industry. Viagra was made to help solve heart problems. In the process of testing, they realized that it was giving the participants of the tests were actually having the results that people do have now when they do take Viagra. Then they found something new. All right. So it was a failing product, but through innovation, they redirected the purpose of that product. So failure is an opportunity to reinvent. It is an opportunity to grow in innovation and creativity. All right. Also, failure helps you re-strategize, and it helps you refocus. It also brings clarity, new clarity to your goals. So now you know how not to achieve that goal. All right. You know one way through which that goal cannot be achieved. Failure also helps you, it equips you as far as career development and skill development is concerned. It equips you. All right. So failure is not always a bad thing. It is a good thing. It definitely equips us. And so anyone who's going through any level of failure, anyone who's experienced any level of failure, I just want to encourage you. Listen, yeah, you are not a failure. You are not a failure. You're being empowered. You are being redirected. You're finding out new ways of doing things. And so just hang in there. But one thing I would say though, it's take notes. Take notes. Largely, many of us have stopped taking notes. Take notes. In the professional settings, take notes. Take notes. Take notes of the things you go through. Take notes of the things and the people.
When you say take note, do you mean like write note or take notice of something?
If possible, write it.
Okay.
If
So you're talking
possible,
about like
write it.
writing notes. Okay.
Yeah. If possible, write it. In I can't do this without talking about the Bible. There was a king. There was a king once in the days of Esther. The Bible says he could not sleep. In Esther chapter 6, verse 1. He could not sleep that night. And so he called for a book of remembrance to be brought before him. In that book were occurrences and things that had happened in his life and in that city and in his place. I mean, in that, let's call it nation. And then it was read to him. That was when he found out that there was a man named Mordecai who had been forgotten about after he saved the king. They took notes. We read of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We read of the things he did. We read of him parting the Red Sea and so on and so forth. We would not have the privilege of reading of those things, about those things, if somebody was not taking notes. It is not petty to take notes. I believe we need to take life seriously. Everything matters. Everything matters. Let's take notes. Take notes of your failures. Take notes of the things that did not work. Take notes of the people that brought you failures. Take notes. Take God. On several occasions, we see God. We see God as a God who takes record. All right. We see it in excuse me, Malachi 3. While many people were having conversations, the Bible says God ordered for the book of remembrance to be brought, and it was written. Their conversation was written in there. So he's a God of record. We hear of Abraham begot Isaac, and Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot. We hear of all of these things. It is because somebody took notes. I'll give you another one.
Yeah.
Paul was getting ready to go on a journey once in the book of Acts. On this journey, he decided he would not go with a guy named John, whose last name was Mark, John Mark. The reason was simple. It was because previously he had gone out on a mission with him. They had encountered certain things, and he did not like the action and reaction of John Mark. He took note. So this time, when it was time to go on another mission, he said, I'm not going with John Mark. Be loving, be caring, forgive yourself, forgive people for all the failures, but take notes. It is wisdom to take notes.
It's wisdom to take notes. Wow, that's powerful. Okay, so finally, before we bring everything to an end, those are powerful words that you just shared with us. And I know that at least we've learned something, or we've been exposed to some level of knowledge when it comes to failure, and taking notes. It's something that we shouldn't take lightly at all. And I strongly agree to that, because sometimes some of the things that happens to us, we tend to forget, and even we sometimes have the solutions to those things, but we tend to forget, and the same thing happens again, and you are like, okay, this thing looks familiar, but what note did I take the last time when that same thing happened? So that probably I can refer to that solution to help me solve this particular problem. So taking
And,
note is very,
and we grew up that way. We grew up that way.
yeah, that is
Many
very
of
true.
us, many of us grew up being given diaries, and we're told, write down what happened today, right? Many females can relate to it. Write down, write down. But unfortunately for some, your parents found your diary and probably did not treat you well after reading what you had written in your diary. And that was invasion of some level of privacy that led you to giving up on taking notes. But I say to you today, take notes. Let's get back to taking notes.
Wow, that's great. My final question to you is, can you tell me, or can you tell us about a time when any form of failure, or any kind of failure, um, led to an unexpected success? Any type of failure was led to an unexpected success that turned something around for somebody in their life, either you personally or anything in relation to somebody, that you can share with us.
Awesome. All right. So I already shared some. I shared penicillin. I shared uh, on um, on Viagra. But there's a famous story that I often tell, share. I know a man who got married, right? And he got married to this wonderful woman for 10 years. It was torment for him. It was torture. He felt like a failure. He came home one day after 10 years only to find out that his wife had packed out and left the home. She had been long planning this. Someone could have seen that as failure. He happened to be a pastor too. At this time, many females in the church were coming at him, excited at his demise, because they saw it probably as an opportunity for them to come in. As he kept turning them down, they kept leaving his church. Eventually, he ends up meeting a female
Wow.
who wasn't a part of his congregation. All of this happened within a span of months. In fact, the female was actually in a different country. She had just finished her medical training. So she was a brand new doctor who was also single. Fast forward, within a year, they got married, and they're living a successful life with kids. With a previous wife, they had no kids. Many could have looked at him as a failure. In fact, perhaps he may have even looked at himself as a failure. Failure when it comes to childbirth, failure when it comes to having a happy marriage, and so on and so forth. But after 10 years, God gives him a much better, or places him in a much better situation where all his desires were finally granted. So for someone who is going through, someone who feels as though you've been failing, or you failed, or you've been delayed, the good news is that you are on time. The fact that you are alive is a sign that you are on time. It is better for a living dog than a dead lion. You may have wanted to be a lion all your life, but if you are called a dog today, it is better for a living dog than a dead lion. Put on your big boy pants. Learn some lessons. Read your notes and move forward. Will it hurt? Yes. Will it be painful? Maybe. Will it be easy? Absolutely not. But by the grace of God, you will overcome, and your failures will be turned into success. Like penicillin, like cornflakes that we know of. Cornflakes was a mistake. All right. Viagra, like I said, was a mistake. But now it's turned into a big industry by itself. By itself.
That is so true. Anyway, wow. Thank you so much, my brother Vincent, for coming up to bless us, to talk about failure, defining what it is for us, the elements of failure itself, what people go through.
It's a pleasure.
What is your final words to bless us, or to bless everybody, and especially people that are going through any kind of failure? Final words to really bless them and let them know that failure is not final. They can always come out of it, and it's a learning process, or it's a learning stage.
Embrace failure.
Embrace failure.
Embrace it. Embrace it. Embrace it. Feel strong. Feel strong. Feel strong. Make the best of your failures, not the worst. Make the best of your failures, not the worst. Feel and the Bible really teaches you, whatever you find your hands to do it with all your might. And then we are also reminded that all things work together for good. All right. I spent about 14 years in the military, in the US military. And in the military, we teach and we are taught that if the leader is going in the wrong direction, follow the leader. If you both are falling in a pit, fall together so you can come out together. Give each season your best. At least you can say, I stood with a team and we fell together. At least you could say, I had a goal and I gave it my best and it did not work. So now I'm going to write a book on how it did not work. I'm going to write a book on what not to do during winter. I'm going to write a book on what not to do. So failure is a great opportunity. Embrace it. Embrace your failures. Embrace your failures. One relationship did not work. It means, well, now you know something about how relationships do not work, right? So embrace the failures, man. Let's embrace it. Let's embrace it. Let's embrace it.
So we should embrace our failures. That's powerful. Thank you so much, my brother.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate this time for blessing
Thank
us.
you.
And we'll talk again. God bless you.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.